together for 30 years. We actually opened the Stouffer Harbor. I forgot to mention I worked for Stouffer. But Alan and I opened the Stouffer Harbor Place in Baltimore together. And so now Alan retires, and they make me president of one hotel. And I'm thinking, okay, my career is coming to an end. So about 3 years ago, I made a proposal to the family to let me start a brand management company called Peabody Hotels and Resorts. And they gave me about $600,000 and said, go to it, create the infrastructure for it, which we did. And we have about 6 projects that are out there in the works. But interestingly enough, it's a whole part of the business I never knew. So I've been learning a lot about it, learning that it's a lot easier to open a $20 million Hampton Inn versus a $150 million Peabody, because banks aren't quick to lend that kind of money because the risk is so high, versus, you know, rather than giving us $150 million, they could open 5 or 6 Hamptons. The risk is spread out all over the place, and the banks would much prefer that. So it's not as quick of a process as opening a whole bunch of limited service properties. So that's kind of bringing you up to date as to kind of my career. I'm single, divorced. I have a son who actually went to school here. He was Chris's worst student. And
he did all right.
He did all right. He lives in Colorado. I'm convinced he moved there because he could smoke pot legally. He claims that he didn't, but I know that that's probably the truth. So that's kind of a little about me. I'm a pilot, love to fly, a boater. I just sold my boat, which I didn't want to sell, but I put it up for sale and it sold in 10 days, which they told me would never happen.
That's not normal.
Isn't that the second happiest day of your life, though?
You know, it really wasn't. It's funny because I had a 42-foot Carver, and the broker told me that boats that size take about a year to 2 years to sell. And he also said they never sell in the summer. Boats that big sell in the winter. Smaller boats, speedboats and stuff like that, sell in the summer. The bigger boats, the yachts and stuff, sell in the winter. So it's July, I put the boat up. Plus, I listed it for $20,000 more than I paid for it, which he said, you can't do that. It's got to be $20,000 less. I said, well, I'm not in a hurry to sell it. So I sold it 10 days later for $10,000 more than I paid for it. So
you made your profit.
I made profit. So anyway, what else? I like to dance. I got my MBA at Memphis. I went to college on an athletic scholarship, played basketball, football, and tennis. I'm a martial artist. I have 3 black belts, one in judo from Japan, one in taekwondo from Korea, and the other Sakisa Eskrima, which is a Philippine martial art. What else? I think that's about me. I'm on a bunch of boards in town. I'm on the chamber board, and they're vice chairman. I'm on the Orpheum board, the Liberty Bowl board, Memphis in May board, University of Memphis, Fogelman Business School board. I'm on the Kemmons Wilson board. I'm on Historic Hotels of the World board. I'm on the National Hotel Association board. I think that's all.
CVB.
I'm on the Convention and Visitors Bureau board. I'm on the State Hotel Association board and the Memphis Hotel Association board.
Is there one you're not on that you want to be on?
Yeah, no, and if I can get off a few and you'd like to take my place, I'd be glad to do that. And you know, a lot of people say, Doug, why are you on all of those boards? The reality is, think about this. So let's take the chamber board. And I've been on that board for about 15 years. The chairman of that board is Richard Smith. Everybody know who Richard Smith is? Fred Smith's son. He's president of Richard Smith is president of one of the divisions of FedEx. And I'm vice chair, so I'm right under him on the executive committee with him. When would I ever get a chance to hang out with Richard Smith? But by being on that board, I hang out with Richard Smith, with Pitt High, with numerous other executives from the city. So by being on these boards, it allows me the opportunity to rub elbows with people that normally probably I would never get to meet or, you know, hang out with. And so by virtue of hanging out with them, that I make connections, and now those people do business at the Peabody. So it has a payback. Now, some of the boards that I'm on, I do it because I really enjoy it, like the Liberty Bowl board. You know, I love football, and so, you know, that's kind of a fun board. The Memphis in May board, I love music, and I love getting into Memphis in May for free, and getting VIP passes, plus they give me a golf cart, so there's some benefits, right?
Yeah, the golf cart.
The golf cart, right?
We stop there for a minute?
Yeah,
What's the latest on, that Carol Coletta's organization wanting to redo Tom Lee Park?
you gotta shut the camera off.
Sorry.
It's a mess. It's a mess. So his question is really, you know, Tom Lee Park is being redesigned, and there's a couple of organizations that have put up some money, but they basically have about $30 million for this redesign. Their total project is about $60 million, so they need money. The problem is the redesign has a major effect on Memphis in May. Music Fest, we can kind of get around some of the design and work around that, but I think it needs some modifications, and there's also a problem in that they have a lot of trees and foliage and all kinds of stuff they're putting in. And when you're moving 10 or 15,000 25-year-old drunks from one part of the park all the way to the other, you know, they're gonna go through those areas and destroy them. I mean, it's just gonna happen. And then at the end of the month, who's gonna pay for it? They're gonna send Memphis in May a bill, and that's a problem. So Music Fest, I think we can work around some, but they're gonna have to make some adaptations. Barbecue is the biggest problem. If you've ever seen an aerial view of barbecue, it basically takes up almost the entire park. Now about 40% of the park is landscaped and has foliage, and they've got structures and everything else. Well, if you take away about 40% of the park, that means you've got to eliminate barbecue teams, shrink the size of the booths and everything else. That's a problem, because that reduces revenue, that affects jobs, it affects room nights in downtown, you know, it affects Beale Street, it affects a lot of things. Memphis in May, economic effect on the city is about $137 million during the month of May. It is the largest economic impact on the city of any event. So right now it's a big controversy and a big problem, and he's probably asking that question because I've been the most vocal person on that. And probably the reason why I'm the most vocal is that a lot of people that would like to be vocal have to be careful because their jobs could be affected if they're too vocal. I'm pretty secure with the Bells family, and the Bells family like it if I speak up on something that affects the business of the Peabody, so I don't keep quiet on things. So, but you know, hopefully I think, you know, smart minds will prevail, and you know, we'll make it a win-win for everybody. But that's kind of answering that. So
I have two follow-on questions, and I'll make it brief. First of all, you've all been to barbecue, you've all been to Music Fest, you all know that what Doug is talking about, it has been in the past, it's a flat area. And what these organizations are proposing is that it's kind of a rolling terrain with sidewalks and creeks and foliage and trees, and all of a sudden it changes the whole picture for the Memphis in May event. Is there a drop dead date where something's gotta be decided, where you folks either can move ahead with the old plan, or you gotta come up with something new?
You know, I think they would like to start really quick. I think ideally they would love to start right after this Memphis in May, so that they can start construction. They figure it's gonna take about 18 months.
So
That's another issue. Another issue is it's gonna take 18 months. They had originally told us that they would do stage construction, meaning that wouldn't affect 2020's Memphis in May. But now they're saying Memphis in May has to find another location in 2020. And exactly, whatever you all said back there. That has a huge effect. If you move it to the fairgrounds or to Liberty Bowl parking lot or to Shelby Farms, that would have a huge effect on both Music Fest and barbecue, let alone the events that happen in between that. We won't get into those, but, and so, anyway, but we're trying to deal through that.
Last question, and I'd ask Holt, but he's hard to get a hold of.
I was just with him.
Were you? Normally you have an honored country, and in March, you take a group on a
Trip.
PR tour of that honored country. And of course, this year, if you folks aren't aware, the honored country is the honored city of Memphis.